Salutations, respected viewers. This is George from Ireland. This video will be about India, Pakistan, and the Kashmir situation, and what's going on presently with a possible renewed conflict in the offing between India and Pakistan. Well, India and Pakistan have been enmeshed for millennia. Obviously, Pakistan's only existed as such since 1947. But India's been identifiable as a country for thousands of years. Of course, it hasn't always had the same frontiers. Sometimes it's split up, sometimes it's reunited, reconfigured. But I won't go into it. I could be here all night talking about Indian history. So India is a primarily Hindu country. That was the first religion there. Hinduism goes back 4,500 years, as long as recorded history in India. And then a bit over 1,000 years ago, Muhammad bin Qasim arrived from what's now Saudi Arabia, in what was then India, and brought the Islamic faith. So the Muslims were concentrated in the very west and the very east of India. The very west of what was India is now, of course, Pakistan. And India was ruled by various Muslim dynasties, particularly the north, and the Mughals, having Delhi as their capital, ruling certainly northern India, most of India at times. Then the British arrived in 1600 and gradually extended their control over the whole country and supplanted the Mughals. But anyway, fast forward to 1885, the foundation of Indian National Congress, this Indian political party with the blessing of the British authorities to provide critical analysis of British governance of India. But anyway, then another issue came up. Bengal, which is one of the eastern provinces of India, was roughly half Hindu and half Muslim. And many Muslims were saying, well, can we have a special bit of Bengal carved out for the Muslim majority and do things a bit differently there? And the British authorities were sympathetically disposed towards this plan. They were inclined to do it. Within Congress, the Indian party, within Congress, there was a special section of it called the Muslim League to represent the particularism of Muslims. Anyhow, and they agitated for this, but Congress as a whole was very unhappy, said don't divide Bengal, it'll be like vivisection. So the British leaned this way and then leaned back the other way, and it was the first really divisive issue in the British era between Hindus and Muslims. Now, Hindus and Muslims sometimes got on splendidly, and sometimes they fought like cat and dog. So it's much too simplistic to say, oh, they're always at each other's throats, or they cooperated beautifully. It varied from place to place, and it varied down the centuries. But anyway, the Muslim League got the hump with Congress, split off, became a separate political party. And that was that. Then after the First World War, there was a lot of unrest in India, people agitating for greater degree of self-governance. And the Muslim League began to see the writing was on the wall that India would not remain in the British Empire forever, not even as a dominion, not the same status as, say, New Zealand or Canada, might separate completely. Anyway, so there were two Muslim thinkers, Allama Muhammad Iqbal and Chaudhry Rahmat Ali, who came up with the idea of a separate Muslim homeland within India. But they weren't absolutely clear that they wanted to split off totally, not at the beginning. And I think it was Chaudhry Rahmat Ali came up with the idea, really, and Muhammad Iqbal invented the name Pakistan, an acronym for Punjabis, Afghans, Kashmiris, and I think Sindhis, but it also means land of the pure in Urdu, if I've got that right. Urdu being the main language of northern Indian Muslims at the time, as it's Hindi with some Farsi accretions, as in Persian accretions, because the Mughals had come from Central Asia, where Persian was a major language, was not only just in Iran, but also in Afghanistan or other countries, or the Tajiks, their language is almost the same, or the Azerbaijanis spoke a lot more Persian back then. So that was that. So then there was the Lahore Declaration in 1940. Muhammad Ali Jinnah, leader of the Muslim League, said, no, we must have a Muslim homeland. He didn't call it the Pakistan Declaration, called it the Lahore Declaration initially, and it must be completely separate. To begin with, it wasn't clear whether there was to be one or two. Was there to be one of the east and one of the west, as in what's now Pakistan, what's Bangladesh? Jinnah said, no, they are to be united. Well, 1947, India became independent. Well, the day before that, Pakistan became independent. There was the Partition of India. And the British, dividing them, Sir Cyril Radcliffe tried to give whole provinces this way or that, but he couldn't do that in the case of Bengal or indeed the Punjab, since these provinces were roughly equally divided between Muslims and non-Muslims, so he had to cut them roughly in half. And that was that. And I won't go into the horrific slaughter that accompanied the partition of India. Now, we talk about British India. Well, that was say 2/3 of the Indian landmass, which was under direct British administration. Obviously, plenty of Indian civil servants, soldiers, police officers, and so on. There are also the princely states, hundreds of princely states, ruled by various Indian hereditary potentates. They'd have different titles like Maharaja, Raja, Gaikwar, Khan, depending on the state. Some were enormous, like the size of France. Some were tiny, just several hundred hectares. But anyway, the generic title prince was used, whatever the person's actual title. So the princely states were allowed to opt for India or Pakistan. And Pakistan being set up as a homeland for Muslims. The Muslim majority ones, they all went to Pakistan. And the Hindu or Sikh ones, they all went to India, just about. But then there was Kashmir, a large princely state in northern India, bordering China, up in the Himalayas. It was ruled by Hari Singh. Despite the surname Singh, he was a Hindu, not a Sikh. And he dithered. The Pakistanis invaded. It was a mostly Muslim state. And then he said, okay, I'll join India. There's some controversy about exactly what was said when. But anyway, some people said there's a complete want of logic here. Why would an overwhelmingly Muslim state want to join India, which is a mainly Hindu country? Obviously, many Indians would say, whether you're a Muslim or a Hindu, you're better off in India. As a Muslim, you have the right to practice your faith, to go to the mosque as much as you want, to eat halal food, to observe Ramadan. That's all respected. You're not even allowed to publish things that blaspheme Islam in India. So India bends over backwards to be accommodating and respectful towards its Muslim minority. Anyway, there was that fighting in Kashmir. The United Nations worked out a ceasefire, and Kashmir has been divided ever since. There's been intermittent fighting across the line of actual control. So Jinnah envisaged Pakistan as a homeland for Indians of the Muslim faith. But of course, from 1947, they called themselves Pakistanis. But it gradually became an Islamic republic. Well, 1956, the constitution was promulgated. It wasn't a Shariat state yet. So he set Turkey as a model, a secular Muslim state. But gradually it became more and more calcified in a rigid theocracy. And by the 80s, it became a Shariat state when Muhammad Zia al-Haq, the military dictator, turned it that way. He announces hudud ordinances, as in extending the death penalty for a plethora of offences, setting up an Islamic ideology council to vet all legislation to make sure that it was Islamically kosher, forgive the pun. And until the 70s, Pakistan, well, certainly in Karachi, had a thriving nightlife with casinos and nightclubs, but they were all shut down. In fact, they exist in a clandestine manner, and well-heeled Pakistanis could drink you under the table. But apostasy and blasphemy became punishable by death, and honor killings became rife. So that was that. So India and Pakistan have fought several times. 1965, they were going to war again. 1971, over East Pakistan, is now Bangladesh, which broke away from Pakistan, became a completely independent country with Indian military support to defeat the Pakistani army, which had killed huge numbers of civilians in Bangladesh. And that was that. And Kashmir was fairly calm after the 70s. Then 1989, the Soviets pulled out of Afghanistan, and many of those, Mujahideen and so on, from Pakistan or Afghanistan or elsewhere, who'd fought the Soviets in Afghanistan, shipped over to Kashmir to repeat their success, as they would see it, and drive out the Indian army. And since then, Kashmir has never known peace. So there've been times when the tensions have been higher and the conflict is intensified. For example, the Kargil War, as they call it, in 1999. And there have been periods of détente. There have been a lot of diplomacy going back and forth, but it's never really gone back to normal. There's almost no trade between the two. So India is afflicted by this scourge of terrorism, and the insurgency in Kashmir is one that refuses to go away. There was a significant Hindu minority there, a few other non-Muslims, but most of them have left because they've often been deliberately targeted by the insurgents, or some would call them terrorists. And the rest of India too, there's been Pakistani instigated terrorism. For example, 2008, the Mumbai attacks, over 180 civilians deliberately killed. This is purposefully targeting civilians. It's not killing them in the collateral way, not the target is military, and by accident we kill some civilians. No, 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 no. It's deliberately selecting civilians for death. So then India stayed her mighty hand, was magnanimous, or you might say lily-livered. Really should have hammered the Pakistanis, because Pakistan is not going to stop doing this kind of stuff. So there's the ISI, Inter-Services Intelligence, because Pakistan had police intelligence, army intelligence, naval and air force intelligence, and they weren't always cooperating, turf wars between them. So said, okay, let's set up the ISI to share intelligence between those four services and indeed the Foreign Office. And that's what happens, the ISI. So they bankroll, they train and arm various militant organizations which are fighting in Kashmir, Jaish-e-Mohammed, the Jammu and Kashmir Liberation Force, Lashkar-e-Taiba, and on and on. And there's this outright perfidy on behalf of Islamabad, which denies being the arsenal and treasurer of all these militant organizations. And I've been to Pakistan and I've seen the donation boxes everywhere. I've seen offices on the street with big saying Jammu and Kashmir Liberation Force. The dogs in the street knows the Pakistani government assists them, as well as allowing them to openly exist in their training camps. And occasionally, the Indians will get onto the Americans, who'll twist Pakistan's arm, who will dismantle a terrorist training camp and then remantle it again a few kilometers away. And it's true, Pakistan hasn't done this for the first time. In the early 80s, they were helping Sikh separatists cause merry hell in India, well, leading to the assassination of Indira Gandhi. So Pakistan's quite a bifurcated country politically. And we talk about moderation there, which is a highly relative term. Those who said there should be the death penalty for blasphemy are often killed, not executed, but someone kills them and the killer will get away with a slap on the wrist sentence. So it's not worth your life to speak out against theocracy there. There's Mutahida Majlis-e-Amal, which is the religious reactionary party. The two major parties, the Pakistan People's Party, the Pakistan Muslim League, well, that's split into factions, and indeed Pakistan's governed by the Tehrak-e-Insaf, Movement for Justice. And the leader of it, Imran Khan, he supports capital punishment for blasphemers and apostates. Now, he's the darling of the West, but I think it's not widely understood in the Occident that this man proposes this barbaric medieval law, which would be completely unacceptable anywhere else, would make him a very difficult dinner guest in London. I can tell you, if people realise that where I come from, in Ireland, we do not kill people for their religious beliefs, including changing their religious beliefs. You could insult Jesus Christ as much as you want in Ireland, and nobody would even slap you in the face. And that's obviously what being modern and civilized is. So there's the research and analysis wing. That's the Indian Secret Service, RAW. And it's a scapegoat in Pakistan. Anything goes wrong, any bomb blast is always RAW's fault. Now, this accusation is not always false. Of course, RAW's got its tentacles into Pakistan and would like to wreak havoc there. And they might say, you do it to us, we're going to do it back to you. Have a taste of your own medicine and pressurize Pakistan, divide them, turn them against each other. There's been this Baluchi separatist insurgency going on for 10 years. It's a recrudescence of what was going on in the 70s. So to see the Indian hand in that is probably not entirely mistaken. So they're trying to enfeeble the Pakistanis and cause them enough internal problems. But the Kashmir conflict rumbles on. This problem refuses to go away. Will India lose the stomach for the fight? Remember someone telling me that war is about breaking your enemy's will to fight. Now, until Pakistan lost its eastern wing, Pakistan was outnumbered by the Indians 4-1. Then they were outnumbered 8-1. But because Pakistan's population is growing faster than India's, it's more like 7-1, and soon it'll be 6-1. Won't get much more than that. Now, the Pakistani economy is not keeping pace. They're racing to stand still. It's like running up a down escalator. Whereas India's turbocharged economy is going further and further ahead, so they can afford more weapons, more equipment, and all the rest of it. And they have more friends, a lot of money, more friends. So Jammu and Kashmir is an expensive problem for India. Would it be wise for India to say, okay, we'll jettison it, we don't want it? Now, the Pakistanis pointed out, the United Nations said there's got to be a plebiscite in which Jammu and Kashmir determines its future. Now, India said, nope, it's ours, the whole of it, even the Pakistani-controlled segment of it. And indeed, Azad Kashmir, as the Pakistanis call their area of it, is represented in the Pakistani National Assembly. So the Pakistanis say, we just want Jammu and Kashmir to be independent, or if they wish to join us, we will facilitate that. And it's true that many Kashmiris don't wish to belong to India, although you might say, well, they're not allowed a choice. That's that. They're part of India. Or as Mrs. Gandhi used to say, all right, we will hold a plebiscite as soon as the Pakistanis leave and give us back the third of Jammu and Kashmir that they control. So step one, Pakistan out. Step two, only then hold a plebiscite. Another thing is the demographics have changed because so many Hindus, Sikhs, or let's say Muslims are sympathetic to India, have been killed, the others have been stampeded out, that those left are more likely to favour independence or indeed joining Pakistan. So should the Indians just say, we'll cede it, it's a headache, we don't want it, it's got negligible economic value, it's a lovely place for the tourists, but that's that, it's just not worth it. We've lost so much blood and treasure up there. But no, that might embolden India's foes. Well, there are many separatist movements in different parts of India which people don't hear about very much in the West. So there's this latest provocation, 40 Indian soldiers killed by a suicide bombing. So what are the Indians going to do to hit back? Well, they will need to react somehow, try to strangle Pakistan's trade. I'm not sure what else they'll do. Pakistan's quite close to China. China's built up. Pakistan is a counterweight to India. And the Chinese are building this economic corridor, helping build up this new port in Pakistan. The Indians will be reluctant to bomb a lot of Pakistani infrastructure because if they do so, they will inevitably kill a few Chinese laborers by accident, and that will hack off Beijing. So there's a Muslim minority in China which is abysmally treated, and any Muslim who practices faith is suspected of being a separatist and a terrorist, and their re-education camps, millions of Uyghurs and so on, and Kazakhs, Muslims, that is, in China, are held in these labor camps and treated terribly. But you won't hear the Pakistanis complaining about that because they dare not tread on the toes of their Chinese friends. Of course, Islamabad will lament long and loud about the supposed iniquities of Indian rule in Jammu and Kashmir, but obviously it's nauseatingly hypocritical that they dare not whisper a word about far worse crimes committed by the People's Republic of China. So it's a very complex interplay between all these South Asian countries. Well, India is not South Asian. And you see how Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, the ruler in all but name of that land, he visited the country. We call him the Prince Regent because his fathers were largely incapacitated. He visited Pakistan and then India. So Pakistan, there was very little money left in the coffers, and they desperately need money, Saudi Arabia, for money and jobs. Millions of Pakistani expatriates working there, sending remittances back. And if that source of revenue dries up, Pakistan's wrecked. About 1991, the time of the first Gulf War, loads of Pakistanis in the Middle East lost their jobs, and the Pakistani economy tanked. Saudi Arabia needs Pakistani muscle. You know, Saudi Arabia's got about 25 million people. Pakistan's got about 200 million. And, of course, Pakistan's got nuclear weapons. And there's said to be this arrangement, if the Iranians ever get a nuclear bomb, the Pakistanis will give the Saudis one straight away. Of course, Saudi Arabia is the birthplace of Islam, and Pakistan is founded on Islam. About 96% of the population are Muslims, so it's an officially Muslim country, and your passport will state your religion. Non-Muslims are discriminated against by law. They can't become president, for instance. So there have been Pakistanis serving in the Saudi Arabian military, and the Saudi Arabians prefer Sunni Pakistanis to come over. So about 85% of Pakistanis are Sunni Muslims, about 10% are Shia Muslims. The Saudi Arabians definitely favour the Muslim League of the two major parties. Tehrik-i-Insaf is okay as well, as in Sunni parties. Then the PPP, it was founded by, the Bhutto family are Shia. Indeed, Jinnah was also Shia, which some Sunni ultras don't like to be reminded of. And so the Saudi Arabians perceive the Pakistan People's Party as being a Shia party, which is not really. Most of its members and voters are Sunni, but it believes in equality for the two denominations. And the Muslim League is not quite so much into that. And there's often been internecine sectarian warfare. So India also has expatriate workers in Saudi Arabia, not as many. India has also got a very oil-thirsty economy. It's growing rapidly and the population is growing. So the Pakistanis don't want to upset Iran too much. They have a land border with Iran. And the Saudi Arabians were fighting in Yemen to prop up the government, mostly Sunni government, and fighting against the Houthi rebels, who are Shia, as in backed by Iran. So the Pakistanis sat on the fence on that one because they didn't want to offend Iran. But there we are. Then another complex issue is how the conflict in Afghanistan is drawing to a close. Trump has waved the white flag. The objective of defeating the Taliban, well, he's given up on that one, and he's effectively handing it to them because they are at the very least going to be a coalition partner in the new government. So the Pakistanis would like to extend and maximize their influence over there. The Indians likewise, because then they could have a friendly government over there. They could encircle Pakistan, even get troops over there if the Afghans are willing to welcome them in. I don't think that's going to happen. But that's that. But that's another ball in the air, what exactly happens with those negotiations. So the Indians are clearly not going to go for a full-scale war against Pakistan, or even much in the way of punitive raids. If they wanted to do it, they would have done it already. And India is very merciful, is very restrained, perhaps too restrained for their own good in regard to these things. Obviously, they don't want to push Pakistan too far because I think the Pakistanis might be maniacs, might actually nuke them. Now, I'm not actually anti-Pakistani at all. There's some Pakistanis I count as dear friends, so they could be gallant people. They've got a fantastic tradition of hospitality, but overall, I'm sorry to say that the country is dreadful. It's in a parlous state, and I feel sorry for ordinary Pakistanis. They're not bad, but they're often abused by their own rulers, by this military-industrial complex there. The last thing the generals of the ISA want is peace breaking out. Then they would lose their status, lose their raison d'etre. Pakistan needs an enemy. Even with this deadly enemy, they find it difficult to unite. The country might break up. The Baluchis might go their own way. And the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa might go its own way and all the rest of it. And maybe sectarian warfare would be even worse. And the generals in the ISA would no longer be able to justify their fat budgets, and they cream loads of money off that. Distract the toiling millions from their poverty. Let's fight India rather than actually give people a decent life. So like 40% of Pakistanis are illiterate. It's a scandal. It's a much higher figure than in India, because obviously so much money has been squandered on nuclear weapons and arms and fighting India, which can probably never be defeated. So there we are. I would that there was peace and goodwill, but I'm not holding my breath.